Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm told that I'm not appearing on the screen, but that's okay. All right, so my name is Inan, and I'm a Program Officer at the FAO Liaison Office in Geneva. I would like to give you a warm welcome to this dialogue on the agroecological status of Switzerland and Côte, organized together with Agroscope. So this webinar and workshop will be in English. It will be recorded and will later be available on our website along with the resources relevant to this session. It is scheduled to last about 2.5 hours. So today we are joined by experts on the results of the assessments undertaken in Switzerland and Côte using the tool for agroecology performance evaluation, also known as TAPE. This tool is developed by FAO and many other partners, and it aims to comprehensively measure the performance of agroecological systems across the different dimensions of sustainability to address the need for harmonized evidence on agroecology. So just quickly on the program, we will start with the presentation of the methodology and the results in Switzerland by Franz Bender, researcher at Agroscope, and Lutz Merwelt, head of the Agroecology and Environment Strategic Research Division at Agroscope. Agroscope is the Swiss Confederation Center of Excellence for Agricultural Research and is affiliated with the Swiss Federal Office for Agriculture. Next, we will hear from Dao Dauda, Director of Resources and Development from the CSRS, or the Centre Suisse de Recherche Scientifique en Côte d'Ivoire, to share the results undertaken in Côte d'Ivoire. The CSRS is a research center active in the fields of biodiversity, food security, environment, and health. Its mission is to initiate, encourage, support, and carry out research in partnership to support sustainable development in Côte d'Ivoire and West Africa. So following his presentation, Femi Kruse, Agroecology Advisor from FAO, will present the pilot phase of TAPE, implemented in 58 countries till 2019, as well as the projects implemented in the second phase of TAPE, which includes assessing agroecology at the national level. And afterwards, we have a short coffee break for 15 minutes, and then we will start with Q&A and open discussions. So if you're online, please feel free to write the questions on Zoom, and we will address them after the coffee break. And we will also have breakout group discussions afterwards. And if you're online, we have a Mentimeter poll for you. So I think first, let's start with the presentation. So please, Franz, please. I'll just switch the slide.
Thank you very much, Annie, for this nice introduction. Good morning, everyone, online, somewhere in the world, but also here in the room. Just waiting for the content to be shared. Can you put this into the toolkit?
It's coming.
All right. So a warm welcome once again, also from my side. We prepared a presentation on a project we had done over the last 12 months, where we're trying to do national assessments of agroecology in Switzerland and Côte d'Ivoire. The presentation will be by myself, but also by my colleague Franz Bender and our collaborator, Dao Dauda. I think you have to click any. Here we go. So just a very, very brief introduction to bring everybody up to date on agroecology. What is agroecology? It's a holistic and integrated approach which looks at the ecological and social concepts and principles to design and manage the future sustainable agriculture food system. What does that mean in a bit more detail? What we're really looking into are all different angles of sustainability, ecological dimensions, sociocultural dimensions, economic dimensions, but also political dimensions. And it always involves the production and the consumption side. And agroecology has been identified as a crucial enabler for food system transformation required to meet the sustainable development goals. So in the end, what we're aiming at, or what the big goal of agroecology is a holistic transformation of our current agri-food systems to be more sustainable on all levels, basically. And for that, FAO has come up with the 10 elements of agroecology, which you see here in the middle, ranging from efficiency, recycling to human values and social value. For instance, but you may also have heard of the 13 principles of agroecology and how these are related actually to food system transformation or agroecological transition, as here shown on the left side, where we want to go from the no agroecological integration of any practices in agricultural systems at level 0 to the whole redesign of our current agri-food system. Realistically, we are currently focusing on levels 1 till level 3. We're really trying already implement certain activities, and we would like to see on where we are actually standing in different countries on this agroecological transformation. Now, the point is, how do we measure actually agroecology? How do we measure all these dimensions? Because you're looking at different scales: farm scale, regional scale, country scale, or food system scale. And again, you need to cover all these dimensions. And for that, FAO and as a mandate of the member countries has developed a tool for agroecological performance evaluation. The tape you will hear up to date, which actually allows to measure these multidimensional performance of these systems. It allows us also to monitor and track the agroecological status and transition of the system in a very harmonized way. And it's based on a relatively simple household questionnaire. So the starting point is where you actually go to the farm level, but this information can actually scale to community or territorial scale. And everything is under these 10 elements of agroecology, where I'm going to enumerate a bit more in detail. What does TAPE look like? It's a stepwise approach from step 0 till step 3. Step 0 is sort of where you try to understand your whole production systems in the individual countries, the type of household, type of farming systems, existing policies, and endemic environments. So that is basically the test study. And following this, then depending on the focus of the project, go to this farm scale and go through step 1 and step 2. Whereas step 1 allows you to look at these 10 elements and come up with the characterization of agroecological transition, or called case 4. And from that, you can also, if you do this multiple times over years, you can also see on how your case score actually improves over time. Step 2 are the criteria of performance. They really look into interactions in more depth between these different elements. And what do I mean with that? When we have these 10 elements, there is sub-questions under each element in the questionnaire. It's in total 36 indicators. And just if you look on the left top, for instance, the element diversity, we're looking at the diversity of crops. We're looking at the diversity of livestock production, for instance. But we're also looking at trees and minerals. And in addition, conflicts the diversity of activities, products, and services. So it's not pure biodiversity indicator or something, it's way more holistic. And you go through all these different elements, and you can actually look this up. So what we did, and before we come to the pilot study, we actually tried out TAPE in Switzerland in 2022. It was you might have to click for me. Okay, because we do run a really nice farm network. It's called the Swiss Agri-Environmental Data Network, where we have access to 300 farms since 2009. So we did have quite a lot of data available. Click again, please. And it's covering most of Switzerland. One more click, please. And it allowed us to calculate several agri-environmental indicators. So we're really looking at the ecological scale, but also other indicators, including biodiversity and more economic indicators as well. Please again. The goal was really to test TAPE, which is originally developed for low and middle income countries, to adapt it to a Swiss context, which has a very diverse agricultural system and is a high income country. Click again, please. So I'll just briefly give you some examples before we go to the national assessment. What we looked at is the performance of these 10 elements. You see them here in this spider diagram. The further you are out on the spider diagram, the better you perform. And we did a distinguishing for these 23 farms only between organic and non-organic systems. And the organic systems are probably more agroecological already by definition. And you see that all of them, the organic farms are actually performing better in all of these elements. So this is a quite robust finding. But when you go a bit further, and you look into these performance indicators of step 2, you see that the picture is actually a bit more diverse and complex. While we, for instance, see a good performance in the dietary index, in agrobiodiversity, soil health, but also pesticides. Pesticides means the less you apply, the better is your score. So the organic farms are actually performing much better. However, when it comes to more economic indicators, income, productivity, and value added, the non-organic systems are actually performing better. So in the end, we really have to look at these trade-offs between different systems and what comes with that. So what did we learn? We know that tape can be representative, produce representative results at land classification or farm type level. We can easily supplement it with existing data sources. In our case, it was specifically economic data, which was available from all these farms already, which we could draw from, so we didn't have to ask all the questions again. And the other thing is, I mean, to really bring the farmers on board on doing a first baseline study, there need to be compensation payments, because otherwise, I mean, you still need between 2 to 3 hours to talk to farmers. It's valuable time, but you would like to have a lot of information from them. And the next step is also providing feedback on this analysis to farmers. So that was a very, very brief example on tape in Switzerland. As I said, you will hear more about tape and also from me later. But what's the current status? Given that it was launched in 2019, it has so far been piloted and applied in a wide range of projects across the globe, 54 countries, if I'm not mistaken, more than 10,000 farms. So there is really valuable information available. The challenge within this whole data set is usually that it's single projects. It's either focusing on just a region or has a very specific focus where you have to compare to different farm types. Very often you don't necessarily have good baseline information, and there's still sort of the application of over time is absolutely necessary and not necessarily given in all the projects. And what is also missing, and this is why we come to the pilot project, or why we did the pilot project, if you focus just on a specific region or a couple of farms, are the results are still robust at national scale? Because in the end, we're trying to come up with an agroecological assessment of a whole country. In this case, it's Switzerland and Côte d'Ivoire. And I hand over to Hans.
Yes, hello everybody, also from my side. Thanks for the introduction. So we performed a pilot study to find out, can we perform tape assessments at national scale? So the main questions were, can we apply tape at national level, and can tape assessments be performed on already existing data sets? The aim was to perform a national tape assessment for Switzerland based on existing databases. And this was thought as a feasibility study to develop some guidelines and identify minimal data requirements needed for this. And then, because Switzerland is an example for a high-income country, we also wanted to perform a similar study in a low and middle-income country, where we collaborated with our partners in Côte d'Ivoire. The aim is to assess the agroecological status of the Swiss agricultural food system at the national scale, following the 10 elements of agroecology, tape step 1, and the 10 core criteria of performance, tape step 2, based on readily available data. So let's look at the Swiss agriculture system first. So around 35% of Switzerland's land surface is used for agriculture. And of this area, nearly 60% consists of permanent grasslands, mostly used for animal production, and 40% is arable land, and some area used for permanent cultures. Then when we look at this arable land, in particular, we see that 60% of this land is used for fodder production, again for animals, and 40% is used for human consumption. So it's a relatively a system relying on animal production. The average farm size in Switzerland is around 22 hectares. Around 2.3% of the Swiss workforce is working in the agricultural sector, and it produces around 0.63% of GDP. The Swiss Federal Office for Agriculture, FAO, provides direct payments to farmers, subsidies for certain services provided by farmers to maintain and promote cultural landscapes, securing supplies, protect biodiversity, enhance landscape quality, and for certain production measures. Switzerland can be separated in different production zones. So you see in light blue here the valley zone, which is where most of the agricultural activities take place. And in green we see the hilly zones, and then everything between yellow and purple, these are mountainous areas where agriculture is performed. And we'll come back to this separation later when we look at the data. There's a lot of the data is available at this resolution, looking at these three different production zones: valley, hill, and mountain. So in Switzerland, we are relatively lucky because it's a highly regulated agriculture system, and through this direct payment system, there's a lot of data available. So the Office of Agriculture collects plenty of data to be able to pay out these direct payments to farmers. So there is importantly the AGIS database, which is the data that FAO Agriculture uses to determine the subsidy payments for farmers. There the farmers are required to deliver data on a regular basis to this database, and it contains data of all the farms in Switzerland that amounts to roughly 50,000 farms. Then there is the Odoo-Flu database, which collects information on fertilizer fluxes on farms. So all organic fertilizers that are imported or exported to a farm have to be registered in this database, also by the farmers themselves. Then there are cantonal databases, the cantonal area utilization data, which contains information of the usage of areas in each canton. So where is cropland, where pastures, where are biodiversity promotion areas. There's information on trees there. It's quite a comprehensive database, but it is not necessarily very homogeneous across the different cantons, because each canton has its own system there. But it is spatially explicit, so we can connect this information directly to the farm information in the other databases. Then we have some economic data and the bookkeeping and operational management data. This is collected by Agroscope, and it's based on a sample of around 2,000 farms each year, where economic indicators are calculated. And it's the Swiss labor force statistics that contains information on the workforce and levels of employment, gender questions, things like that. The agricultural structural assessments from the Federal Office of Statistics, that is based on around 14,000 farms. Also collects, actually that's based on also all farms, I think, and collects, also different data on farms. Then agricultural census data, some data from the Federal Office of Energy for renewable energy production. Then there was a survey on nutrition across the Swiss population in 2015 called MENU-CH that we used for some of the indicators. And we also used data from a citizen science project that we performed at Agroscope, called Proof by Underpants. So this was based on, so it was looking at soil health, and we had people wearing cotton underpants in their soil to look at the decomposition. And we collected lots of soil data with 1,000 participants. I come back to this later. So this is just a brief overview. The 10 elements of agroecology cover the 3 dimensions of sustainability, so environmental, economic, and social. And what we will see, a little spoiler alert, what we will see in the data that for the environmental data resolution is often quite high. So we have relatively detailed data availability. For the economic indicators, resolution is a bit less precise. So we have a bit more rougher picture. And for the social indicators, often you only get some national values. So the resolution is rather low for social aspects. Here an overview of the different indicators in the TAPE questionnaire and the data availability. So these are the first 18 indicators of the TAPE questionnaire in this table. And we see in the second column from the right, the resolution at which data is available. So when it's green, it's data is available at the farm level. And we see that there's quite a few indicators where we have information at that level, but then in yellow, there's information that's only available either at cantonal level, so we have one value per canton, or per production zone, so valley, hill, or mountain. And then we have in the very right column with the confidence, how well does this data correspond to the questions asked in the TAPE questionnaire. Looking at the second half of the TAPE indicators, we see a lot more red in the column looking at the resolution. So there it comes more to the social indicators. And we don't have such precise data. So often we could look at available databases and derive a national assessment. We performed informed estimates for these indicators. Just an example on how we approached this task now. So TAPE functions this way. There is a certain question. For example, on the top, we see diversity, so the crop diversity question. And then there's 5 different options to choose from. And these options each get a number from 0 to 4. And for example, in the FAO questionnaire, so if there's a monoculture on your fields, you get a 0. If there's different crops, but one crop covers most of the area, it's a score of 1. If there are 2 or 3 crops, it's a score of 2, and so on. And for the score of 4, we have, when it's more than 3 crops and different varieties and other diversification aspects on the farm, polycropping, intercropping. In our database, we didn't have that precise data, so we only had information on the main crops on the field. No information on varieties, and also not on diversified farming practices. So we had to adapt the questionnaire a little bit. So we see it in the top row. So it's monoculture, it's a 0, and we just go by the number of crops on the farm. So if it's more than 5 different crops, we gave it a score of 4. Another example in the lower part for the diversity of activities. So the TAPE questionnaire, in the bottom line, it asks for the number of different productive activities on the farm. All the data that we had available was the percentage of income derived from diversifying activities. So we used this information to give the scores. So there's sometimes a challenge to adapt the information in the databases to the questionnaire, and we will still have to see how well these different informations actually align with each other and transport similar information. So coming to the results, again, spider diagram that we've seen before. Here we have the agroecological performance by production zone. So we see in green the valley regions, pink the hill regions, yellow mountain regions. And we see the 10 different indicators, elements of agroecology. And this kind of reflects the data availability that we had. So we see for the elements of diversity, synergies, efficiency, recycling, and resilience, we see some separation between production zones. But then for the more social elements, culture and food tradition, and a co-creation, sharing of knowledge, things like this. We see we only have basically one level, and we cannot distinguish between the different production zones. And yeah, what we see here, that often the mountain area performs better. So the performance are further on the outside, especially for the element efficiency and recycling. And when we look at the same data, but separated by farm type, so again, it's conventional or organic management, we see that organic also performs better in some elements, synergies, efficiency, recycling. And when we also compare this to the results that Lutz earlier showed, where we performed tape assessments on farm in Switzerland, we see that for these indicators, it somehow gives a similar picture. Efficiency, organic systems perform better in efficiency and synergies and recycling. So this indicates that the two approaches might result in similar outcomes. We also performed the analysis on cantonal level. So these are the 26 cantons of Switzerland. Again, we see in the example of recycling, there's one canton, Appenzell-Innerrhoden, performing very well in recycling. And what we often see, the mountain zones and cantons where a lot of animal production is happening, they perform well in these indicators for efficiency in recycling, because there's a lot of organic fertilizer recycling, a lot of animals, and then manures used for fertilization. So they don't purchase a lot of mineral fertilizers, which might be one reason for this outcome. We also tried to perform a step 2 analysis for Switzerland. So the questionnaire for step 2 is actually quite a bit more complex than for step 1. But we were able to use similar data for many of these core criteria to answer step 2. And this is now like a traffic light approach. Green indicates a desirable performance, yellow average performance, and red unsustainable performance. And for secure land tenure, we just performed a national estimate, basically. So the farmer rights and land rights are usually well represented in Switzerland. Productivity and income, we could use economic data. We see that the economic performance is a bit lower in mountain regions compared to hill or valley regions. For the dietary diversity, we couldn't separate between the 3 production zones. Women's empowerment, youth employment, we perform only have national estimates. Agricultural biodiversity, we could estimate based on a lot of data that was used for step 1. So crop diversity is usually quite desirable in all 3 regions. Animal diversity is rather low, and semi-natural habitats are more prevalent in mountain regions compared to hill and valley. And then the soil health indicators. So we didn't follow the questionnaire here, but we used data from the citizen science project approved by Underpants that I mentioned earlier. So there we had collected soil samples from more than 900 sites together with citizens, and could perform soil analyses. And we had the biological activity as indicated by Underpants decomposition. And so we calculated a soil health indicator to answer this. Then in the bottom, we see the biodiversity indicator. This is not part of the official TAPE questionnaire, but it is something that was developed by Agroscope during the Swiss project we saw in the beginning, where we tried to develop an indicator that reflects unplanned biodiversity on farms. So not just looking at the crops and the animals that are put there on purpose by the farmer, but also biodiversity as a whole. And we could also answer quite a few indicators there with this existing data. To summarize the results from Switzerland, when we look at the different production zones, valley, hill, mountains, we saw that in mountain regions, there's lower crop and income diversity, there's higher connectivity in the landscape. Importantly, they use less mineral fertilizers, pesticides, external inputs, and more recycling fertilizers. And the differences that we see between production systems are mostly related to livestock farming. So when they produce a lot of crops. There's no need to apply pesticides, for example, and to buy mineral fertilizers. We look at the differences between management systems. In organic, we saw this higher income diversity, a tendency towards more trees, more animal diversity, bigger connectivity on the farms. And again, the biggest differences between organic and conventional systems were the application of mineral fertilizers and pesticides. The cantonal differences, we see again that cantons in mountainous areas score higher for efficiency and recycling, again related to manure, mineral fertilizer, and cantons with big cities, Geneva or Zurich, had higher income diversity and also higher crop diversity. Yeah, and it often came back in Switzerland to really to nutrient management being the biggest factor in important differences between the different aspects that we looked at. Yeah, mountain versus valley regions, organic versus conventional, the biggest differences were in using manure versus mineral fertilizers. So overall, the study provides baseline data, and I think for the future we would have to perform more detailed assessments, looking at the different production types and farm types, and also monitoring the development over time. And yeah, this was the case of Switzerland, and now I pass on to Dauda from Côte d'Ivoire to present results from there.
Merci beaucoup, France. Je vais marquer une transition. Se rendre compte qu'on est dans une institution internationale. Et le français est l'une des langues autorisées. Nous allons faire la présentation de du cas de la Côte d'Ivoire en français. Comme ça a été dit en introduction, je suis Daouda. Je suis enseignant-chercheur à l'Université Félix-Houphouët-Boigny et donc chercheur au Centre suisse de recherche scientifique, où j'occupe la position de directeur général adjoint, directeur de valorisation et des expertises.
So Dauda will present in French. He's a lecturer and researcher at the Swiss Center for Scientific Research. Voilà, and he will start the presentation.
Voilà. Ayant aucune idée de la structure du public qui sera là, je vais faire quelques généralités sur la Côte d'Ivoire. Donc la Côte d'Ivoire, c'est un pays situé donc, en Afrique occidentale, 322 000 km². Au dernier recensement, nous sommes autour de 29 millions d'habitants. Et comme vous voyez sur la carte, nous avons en gros 3 grandes zones agroécologiques. Nous avons la partie centrale qui est la partie donc savanicole, savane herbeuse, savane arborée, et au nord donc c'est la savane et au sud c'est la forêt.
Okay, so we'll support the translation with Delphine. So it was a presentation of Ivory Coast in West Africa. So 29 million hectares and 3 main agricultural zones that you can see on the screen.
Selon donc ces grandes zones agroécologiques, vous avez également des grandes zones de production. Officiellement, donc, vous avez 2 grands types de cultures. Donc, vous avez les cultures, on va dire, vivrières annuelles. Et vous avez les cultures pérennes, donc souvent industrielles. Et dans les cultures annuelles, vous avez les racines tubercules qui présentent la plus grande partie, et vous avez également les céréales. Le riz est la plus grande, mieux consommée, mais avec un déficit de l'ordre de 50%. Et puis, au niveau donc des cultures de rente, vous connaissez bien la Côte d'Ivoire, nous sommes surtout connus pour la production du cacao, et de café, et de palmiers à huile, et ainsi de suite. Donc, voilà en gros comment se répartit l'occupation territoriale en termes de culture.
So on the map, you can see also the production areas, and there is two types of crops: annual food crops and industrial cash crop. So the annual food crops are the roots, tubers, cereals, in particular rice, being the most widely consumed. And for the cash crop, there is mainly cocoa, coffee, and oil palm.
Alors, donc chaque fois qu'on parle de la Côte d'Ivoire, donc comme tu le disais, on parlera toujours donc de l'importance en termes de production du cacao-café. Donc, depuis les indépendances jusqu'à maintenant, donc de très belles performances dans la plupart des secteurs agricoles. Donc, les cultures de rente, surtout avec les places honorables qu'on occupe au niveau du cacao. Donc, nous sommes premier producteur, deuxième producteur africain de cajou. Je ne vais pas revenir sur ces éléments. Et surtout, la place de l'agriculture dans l'économie globale. Donc, pour avoir une idée, il faut savoir que le secteur agricole contribue à plus du quart, 25% dans le PIB, dans le produit intérieur brut, et occupe globalement la moitié de la population, sinon la totalité de la population.
So it was to present the role of agriculture in national economy, especially cash crops like cacao and coffee. We have a really good performance, economical performance, like 25% of the GDP, and more than 50% of population work in this sector.
Cependant, comme vous voyez sur la figure, il y a de gros défis. Donc, nous avons eu une baisse extrêmement importante du couvert forestier. Nous sommes à peine à 3 millions d'hectares sur les plus de 70 qu'on avait. Et du coup, il y a énormément, ça pose énormément de défis. Et ces défis donc, se traduisent par tous les effets du changement climatique avec une forte dégradation de la qualité des sols et une prise d'importance donc du secteur minier, parce que historiquement, le secteur minier n'était pas très exploité en Côte d'Ivoire, mais depuis ces 10 dernières années, il y a un développement du secteur minier qui aggrave donc cette dégradation et surtout qui crée un phénomène insidieux qui est une sorte de transfert de la main-d'œuvre des secteurs agricoles vers les secteurs miniers. Alors, avec cette pression sur le secteur agricole, on a tendance à utiliser de plus en plus de produits, de fertilisants, d'herbicides, de toutes ces choses qui créent de fortes dégradations. Et donc, ça entraîne donc des grosses pressions parasitaires. Pour avoir une idée de cette pression, il y a 2 ans, nous n'avons pratiquement pas eu de production de coton suite à une grosse attaque parasitaire. Et ça, ces phénomènes-là sont perceptibles de façon générale. Pour les légumes également, c'est des éléments qui sont très perceptibles. Donc, il y a un grand défi qui est lié donc à cet accroissement, à ces performances de l'agriculture et qui amène beaucoup de populations à prendre conscience de la non-durabilité du système actuel.
There are big challenges. First is the significant decline in forest cover, but also reinforcement of the effects of the climate change and serious deterioration in soil quality, indeed linked to the development of the mining sector, which exacerbates soil degradation and labor transfers because the lack of labor increase the use of herbicides and chemicals, and so it has an impact also on the production.
Alors, face à ces grands défis, quels sont les grands choix que la Côte d'Ivoire a eu à faire? Donc, nous sommes partis donc vous savez que dans les pays africains, il y a eu, à partir de la politique africaine de l'Union, politique agricole de l'Union, où chaque pays a mis en place une politique nationale de développement. Et de cette politique nationale de développement, on a extrait ce qu'on a appelé le programme national d'investissement agricole, PNIA, le programme national d'investissement agricole. Et ce sont ces PNIA qui déclinent donc la politique de développement des pays. Et pour la Côte d'Ivoire, nous sommes à notre deuxième programme national d'investissement agricole, PNIA 2. Et les choix stratégiques faits à l'intérieur de ces PNIA, c'est donc de structurer le pays en 9 pôles qui présentent une cohérence agroécologique. Donc, on a parlé donc de pôles d'agroécologie intégrée. Et ces pôles-là sont développés autour de spéculations spécifiques avec prise en compte de toutes les démarches de durabilité, notamment les éléments en lien avec l'agroécologie. Et on a, au niveau donc, c'est la carte que vous voyez là, donc voici les 9 pôles agroécologiques. Et je reviendrai sur les projets. Les projets, ce que vous voyez, P1, P2, P3, ainsi de suite, ce sont les projets qui ont été retenus dans le cadre de l'évaluation de type dans le projet. Mais je reviendrai sur ce point plus tard. Mais déjà, il faut savoir que il y a beaucoup de projets qui parlent donc d'agroécologie. Mais nous avons porté notre réflexion sur les 6 que nous allons présenter. Nous vous expliquerons pourquoi.
So the big choice of Ivory Coast, it was in the National Development Policy. It was a National Agricultural Investment Program. We are now in the second investment program, who aims to structure the country into 9 agroecologically coherent poles. They are developed around specific products with sustainability approaches linked to agroecology. So many of the projects are speaking about agroecology, but the focus today will be on 6 of these poles out of 9.
Donc, donc ça allait très vite. Donc, je sais pas si je peux faire des oreilles.
Go back. And now. Now, next one.
Je pense que c'est.
Voilà, this one. Non,
Il
il y en a une entre les deux.
Next, non,
il n'y a pas.
next. Previous is
Previous one.
Previous,
Deuxième.
Stop to play. Arrête le down.
Non, il n'y en a pas.
Next one.
Ah non, c'est.
that's the next.
Okay.
Non,
now
c'est
this
celui-là.
Ça va. OK. Alors, pour revenir à la méthodologie que nous avons mise en place. Donc, lorsque nous avons été contactés donc, par l'équipe d'Agroscope, au départ, nous avons pensé plutôt à vouloir mettre en œuvre l'approche type à travers le questionnaire. Nous avons pensé identifier des zones qui pouvaient représenter la totalité de la Côte d'Ivoire. Mais de la compréhension des termes de référence, nous avons compris qu'il fallait partir de la base de données existantes. Et sur la base de cette compréhension, nous avons fait une revue de littérature. Et de la revue de littérature, nous avons recensé les structures que vous voyez ici. Au niveau national, donc, c'est le ministère d'État, ministère de l'Agriculture et des productions végétales, vivrières, pardon, et des productions vivrières. Ensuite, c'est tout ce qui est centres nationaux de recherche. En Côte d'Ivoire, c'est le Centre national de recherche agronomique, CNRA. Et puis après, on a recensé la totalité des centres. Donc, le mien, Centre suisse de recherche scientifique, c'est l'École supérieure d'agriculture, la structure qui assure donc la vulgarisation des formations agricoles en Côte d'Ivoire, qui est l'ANADER, l'Agence nationale de développement agricole, et des ONG, surtout, et puis l'ensemble des universités et des structures internationales, notamment ICRAF, FAO, CIRAD et IRD.
So in terms of methodology, they wanted first to have a questionnaire approach in area representing the evaluation cost, but finally at the end, they started from existing data and a review of the literature, and they do a state of all national agricultural research centers, all extension centers and NGOs and all the actors working on it and having data.
Voilà, donc sur la base de cette liste, nous avons pris des contacts par téléphone, nous avons fait des rendez-vous, nous avons échangé et nous avons commencé les échanges à distance avec Agroscope. Compte tenu de la volonté d'avoir une compréhension partagée de l'environnement, parce que quand je dis en Côte d'Ivoire une ferme agricole, je ne suis pas sûr qu'un Suisse puisse imaginer, parce que ayant moi-même fait des études ici à l'ETH, je connais bien le contexte suisse, je connais bien les fermes suisses, mais quand je vois les fermes ivoiriennes, je sais que pour un Suisse, ça ne va pas être évident d'imaginer ce contexte. Donc, France et donc Lutz ont fait une mission en Côte d'Ivoire, une mission de 4 jours, où nous avons pu parcourir 3 grandes zones agroécologiques et visiter quelques fermes avec ce qu'on peut appeler là-bas la mise en œuvre de l'approche agroécologique. Et donc, c'est sur la base de toutes ces informations que les résultats qui vont être présentés vont vous être présentés.
So, appointments were made on the basis of this list, but it was before necessary to coordinate with a project from Agroscope, who are more used to Swiss farms, but they can understand the reality and the context of Ivory Coast farms. So they visited together either 3 larger areas and to see how agroecology was implemented in these farms.
Alors, qu'est-ce que nous avons eu comme grande difficulté? Nous avons donc rencontré les structures, on a présenté la méthodologie, on a bien expliqué. Malheureusement, on a rencontré beaucoup de réticences à mettre à disposition les bases de données. Pour plusieurs raisons. C'est des centres de recherche, c'est des centres qui utilisent ces données pour pouvoir faire des publications et puis faire avancer les chercheurs en grade. Donc, on a senti une sorte de réticence, une crainte à ce qu'on se l'approprie, que ça... Et à la fin, on a pu donc avoir ces 6 projets. Nous allons après regarder. Mais nous avons gardé de très, très bons contacts avec les structures qui disposent d'informations sur les bases. Ce que nous pouvons dire généralement sur les bases de données, c'est des bases éparses. C'est des bases qui ne couvrent pas la totalité du pays. C'est des bases qui abordent des thématiques souvent distinctes. Vous allez avoir des bases qui vont se concentrer sur les cultures vivrières, des bases sur les cultures de rente, des bases sur des approches plutôt production végétale. Pour les productions animales, on n'a pas eu accès à énormément d'informations. Donc, c'est l'ensemble de ces bases-là que nous avons essayé de mettre en œuvre pour voir est-ce que nous pouvons appliquer donc l'approche type par une adaptation.
So they met difficulties. The main one was because the different entities, organizations holding data were reluctant to make databases available. And the second one was that the databases was so diverse in terms of geographical coverage and crop type. So for sometimes it was difficult to use and to make comparison.
Voici les 6 projets qui ont été finalement retenus. Au départ, nous sommes partis sur la base d'une dizaine de projets, mais compte tenu de la complétude des données, nous avons finalement retenu ces 6 projets. Donc, si vous remarquez, donc, le premier projet, c'est l'identification de 750 bénéficiaires et la résiliation des études, la réalisation des études diagnostiques des contraintes de production dans la zone de Nzi, ce qui concerne donc les maraîchers, et puis donc l'igname, le manioc. Après, vous avez encore un projet qui concerne le diagnostic des pratiques agricoles avec l'approche champ-école paysan. Après, vous avez un projet en lien avec l'amélioration des variétés et des bonnes pratiques agricoles. Après, vous avez un projet qui est en lien avec la protection, la possibilité d'installation des migrants au travers du développement de l'agriculture périurbaine. Et les deux derniers, donc, c'est un projet en lien avec la transparence de la production du cacao. Et donc, le dernier projet, c'est le développement et la promotion de l'agroforesterie dans les systèmes agricoles de cacao. Donc, quand vous remarquez, quand vous prenez la structure de ces projets, vous verrez que le premier groupe de projets s'intéresse surtout aux cultures vivrières, donc racines, tubercules, et puis aux pratiques, donc bonnes techniques de production. Et l'essentiel des projets, c'est au niveau de la ferme ou de l'individu, parce qu'on va voir est-ce que cet individu a les bonnes pratiques. Le deuxième type le deuxième groupe, à partir du 3, vous avez une sorte de mixte autour de l'agriculture urbaine et périurbaine. Donc, comment exploiter ces espaces-là. Et les deux derniers, c'est en Côte d'Ivoire, on parle beaucoup plus d'agroforesterie, parce que c'est donc les arbres qui sont les éléments déterminants des approches agroécologiques.
Okay, so here are the 6 projects who were selected out of the initial 10 projects. So the first one, for instance, is identification of 750 beneficiaries with a directive of production constraint for market gardeners. Another one is on farmer field schools. Another one on food farming practices. Another one on installation of migrants with urban agriculture. And the other one on agroforestry. So you have a first group of projects about food crops and practices with a focus on farm and individuals. And a second group with more on urban agriculture. And another group on agroforestry because it's really developed in Ivory Coast.
Voilà, donc ce sont ces projets. Donc vous notez, malgré le nombre réduit de projets, vous notez que l'essentiel des agro-systèmes sont couverts. Je vais essayer d'aller un peu plus rapidement pour permettre donc les discussions. Alors, la méthodologie, donc avec France pourra revenir sur les détails. On a essayé donc de faire de ces 6 groupes de projets une même base de données. Donc, à partir donc de la méthodologie qui a été appliquée pour le cas suisse, et de cette méthodologie-là, on a pu extraire ces informations qui informent sur les 10 grands éléments avec quelques indicateurs. Il y a donc, quand vous regardez, je ne vais pas rentrer dans le discussion, ça va faire long, mais je laisserai la possibilité, lors des discussions, de revenir sur ces éléments-là. Mais vous noterez que la diversité est abordée à travers donc les cultures, donc sur arbres, non-arbres, et puis à partir de là, vous avez les synergies également. Il y a 4 éléments de synergie qui sont abordés. Au niveau de l'efficience, c'est approximativement abordé autour de 4 grands éléments, mais de façon générale, il est nécessaire de faire une sorte d'extraction de ces informations à partir des données que nous avons. La question n'est pas explicitement posée, mais c'est la combinaison de 2-3 questions, de réponses à 2-3 questions qui permet de donner une réponse à des indicateurs. Donc, c'est un peu tout ce travail qui a été conduit et qui nous a permis de pouvoir générer cette. Pour aller dans une conclusion partielle, je dirais que, en gros, l'approche type peut être implémentée en Côte d'Ivoire, moyennant donc un gros effort donc, de sensibilisation pour la mise à disposition des bases, de compréhension fine des éléments qui sont collectés et un peu plus de temps pour extraire ces informations. Pour terminer, il y a au niveau du centre suisse, par exemple, une zone qui est à cheval entre la forêt et la savane, qui regroupe l'essentiel des caractéristiques des approches de culture en Côte d'Ivoire. Et si on appliquait la démarche type, on pourrait approcher une idée des performances de la mise en œuvre de l'approche type sur l'agriculture ivoirienne. Voilà un peu ce que je vais dire et puis je vais m'arrêter ici.
So in terms of methodology, the idea was to have a single database for all the 6 projects and given the information on the 10 elements of agroecology. So crop diversity is taken into account, synergies, efficiencies, etc. But it was a bit difficult based on the existing data to extract the information in order to fill in the indicators. And so this was requested an effort to raise awareness, to understand the data collected, and they need also time to analyze. So it was the approach they had to implement STAPE in Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay, so I will take over again. So we've seen results from Switzerland and Côte d'Ivoire, and what have we learned? First, for the case of Switzerland. Yeah, we saw that we have many indicators available at the farm level. Some details asked in the TAPE questionnaire are not available in the data, so we have to adapt the questionnaire in some cases. We have some information that is kind of overrepresented in the evaluation. For example, recycling fertilizers, the use of manure versus mineral fertilizers. As an example, we didn't have data on a lot of data on external inputs other than mineral fertilizers, no data on pesticides or other inputs. And so we, for many, actually for 3 different indicators, they're mostly based on the amount of recycling fertilizers used versus the use of mineral fertilizers. So this data is a bit overrepresented in the evaluation. We saw that the spatial resolution differs within databases, and it differs for social, economic, and environmental parameters, where social and economic indicators are mostly available at larger scale, only at canton, production zone, or even national level. Partly we had to use different types of data than it was available in the questionnaire. So there we need to still test the appropriateness, how well does these informations align. For Côte d'Ivoire, we saw that the data is available across a multitude of different projects from different actors, which represents a challenge. So to get access to the data was a big challenge, and the availability of information, the format in each data set, the questions asked in each data set, and the focus of the projects, they all differ. And so it's difficult to really get a comprehensive idea of the ecological status in this way. And we could also often only gather information on a subset of indicators from each project. So it's like a puzzle to put together. We also saw it in the results. It was a bit, very high variation. And I think you need more time and more effort to do this in a robust way. It also takes a lot of personal interpretation to extract the information from the data sets to answer the TAPE questionnaire. And so standardization is a challenge in this approach. So overall, what are our conclusions? So in general, we can say we can perform national TAPE assessments based on existing databases. The more centralized the data source, the easier it gets. So our federal database in Switzerland helped a lot. And compared to Côte d'Ivoire, where we have lots of different projects. The calculation of the CAPE scores needs to be adapted to each data source. And there is some personal interpretation. Best estimate approach is necessary. So it's important to perform a detailed documentation on what you did and how you took decisions to derive in the TAPE assessment. And also we saw that the spatial resolution may differ a lot for different indicators. And we cannot assess all indicators at the same level. And data availability and spatial resolution is in general a bit higher for environmental dimensions compared to economic and social dimensions. So we also developed some recommendations collect ideas how we think we could further streamline national tape assessments in the future. How can we fill data gaps, and how can we make the whole process more efficient and robust? I will hurry up a little bit for the sake of time. So, but one very promising tool is remote sensing. So it's the use of satellite data or drone data, where optical data is collected from the Earth's surface in multiple wavelengths, and this can give information on vegetation, land use, water dynamics, climate dynamics. Satellite data is often freely available. It can provide real-time data, and it is available at relatively high resolution. So standard at this moment is 10 square meters per pixel. And artificial intelligence, machine learning methods can also greatly help to streamline these methods. But just an example here. So this data can be used to assess soil cover on percentage of bare soil, to assess yields, to identify crops and also crop rotations, and also to assess unplanned biodiversity on the fields. So there's some relevance for several tape indicators through this approach. But it might be a bit challenging to apply this to smallholder farms, because of the smaller farm size, the resolution might not be precise enough, at least for satellite data. And so we think there's a minimum farm size necessary, or minimum plot size, to be able to reliably use this satellite data. But also these algorithms used, they could be further improved. And if we combine these remote sensing approaches with on-the-ground work and combine these data sets, we think it could be possible to get a more detailed idea of what's happening on the field, and also to look at mixed cropping systems and so on, to gather information on this through this approach. Okay, another approach is citizen science. We think it is promising. So citizen science is the collection of data together with members of the society, and it has been already successfully applied to for biodiversity monitoring, to look at public governance, community issues, and it has also been proposed to allow the tracking of sustainable development goals. The advantages are it's very inclusive, so often you just need an internet connection and a smartphone to participate. It can gather data on sensible issues. The number of participants is not limited in theory, and it's potentially unfiltered by interest groups or governments, for example. Just this example I mentioned before, where we looked at soil health with burying cotton underpants. So this allowed us to collect a huge data set all over the country in Switzerland, more than 900 sites. So there is potential there, and there's also some ideas how this could be used. Slides are not changing here. How this could be used to gather information on, for example, food systems, so direct marketing strategies, farm-to-plate storytelling, or to collect information on gender aspects, youth empowerment, or environmental resilience through stories of change. So just a little brainstorming, to get ideas how citizen science could help to inform tape assessments. We think it's very important to involve communication experts in this endeavor, because it's really important to have a clear idea how you communicate these issues, how to engage people, how to keep them engaged. Yeah, and where these methods, remote sensing or citizen science, do not derive good data, you still need to go on the ground and collect data. But this should only focus on the indicators that cannot be assessed through other approaches. And you should aim at developing a representative sampling strategy that, you don't have to go to every farm, but something that is representative for a larger scale assessment. Here's just a quick overview of how these different approaches, so remote sensing, in brown, citizen science in blue, representative sampling methods in red, how they could could contribute to the 36 tape indicators. In the end, modeling approaches are also very important and could help us to integrate all these different sorts of data and to extrapolate the information over larger regions. So basically you create a map, you fill this with all sorts of data and information that you gather, you look for correlations between landscape elements and this data and use this to extrapolate the results and get the broader picture. This is just an example where so a PhD student working with us looked at rice farming in northern Iran and combined remote sensing data on rice fields with data on watersheds, hydrological data, and was modeling crop water stress with this approach. And we also have colleagues applying this to look at pollination services. For example, here this is how the pollination potential for certain crops is supposed to change due to climate change for apples and for rapeseed. We see, for example, that the pollination potential for rapeseed is expected to decline. So there's a lot of opportunities to use these modeling approaches. Can also be applied to aspects like soil health, carbon storage, system services, and could also integrate socio-economic data and to look at the effect of agricultural policies on landscapes, ecosystems. This is quite a busy slide, but just to walk you through how we think a national assessment could be performed. So you perform an initial desk study to look what data is there, you identify the gaps, you perform this first national assessment like we did now. We know which are the gaps. We try to look at these so-called low effort strategies to collect data like remote sensing or citizen science. And what cannot be filled with this, we have to go on the ground and collect additional data and perform targeted surveys. And in the end, we can use modeling to extrapolate and really get a homogeneous picture over a whole area, the nation, for example. We also quickly looked at whether these approaches can help to allow sustainable development goal tracking, especially for indicated 2.4.1, proportion of agricultural area under productive and sustainable agriculture. TAPE contains around 90% of the information needed to assess this indicator, and the additional aspects that are needed to inform the SDG 2.4.1 indicator could also be gathered with additional approaches that we just presented. So to conclude, overall, we saw TAPE assessments based on existing databases are possible. There are some limitations though. For the case of Switzerland, with a strongly regulated and subsidized agriculture system, is a relatively solid database to perform such assessments. In less well-regulated agriculture systems like in Côte d'Ivoire, it's a bit more challenging. Just see that several approaches could help us to streamline these efforts, and coordinated interdisciplinary research efforts focusing on improving and developing these tools could really bring us a big step forward to perform these national assessments at a larger scale and with less work effort. And with this, we're at the end, and thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Franz and Dao. Two very different contexts, a lot of information. I'm sure many people have a lot of questions at the moment. But right now, I would like to hand over to Giovanni, who will do a presentation on the TAPE project implementation in more countries. So yeah, if you can just hold on to your questions until we have the Q&A. Great. I'm gonna just switch the slides now.
Okay, thank you. So I will make a brief presentation, but yeah, just to recall the context. So thanks Agroscope and FAO Geneva for this work done. It was really important because 1 year ago, we had decided to work with Agroscope to make the study on TAPE national. because we are foreseen that we needed to move forward on this. So this feasibility study and the results are coming in a really nicely moment, you know, because I will explain why. Yeah, and the conclusion are positive, that's great, because we were expecting for this conclusion to start a new process, a process on having TEP at national level in 4 countries. We will have the support of the European Commission for this. I will explain you that what. But what is nice is the limitation I heard will be overcome because we will have the support of the European Commission, so we will do field survey on addition of the national review. We have also FAO Statistical Division will support us. We use all the existing data on census. We work with local community for citizen sense, and we'll have a research project on remote sensing and machine learning and so on. So all this, we try to, now the next phase will be using all the recommendations that you can have now. So.
The left one. The left.
It's a bit slow. Okay, TAPE in 4 slide, you know TAPE, so I will be quick on this because I think we are late, but just to explain the objective to generate global evidence on agroecology. Just for you to understand the global picture, TAPE started like in 2018, so it's been a long way so far. And the long way was a pilot phase because it was pilot tested during 4 years. We had a validation workshop in 2023, and then TAPE was validated by partners, by FAO, and we had recommendations to improve TAPE. And many recommendations we are taking into account now, and also to have a funding strategy. So we'll be able to perform TAPE where data are needed and where we can collect data in a robust way. So we start now a new phase, I will say a deployment phase 2024 with funding for European Union, where we have TAPE Plus with consolidated data and with TAPE National. So TAPE National is the topic of today, so we go more on this topic. Just to say also something quite new, we already had a mandate for the members country of FAO who asked us to work on agroecology, to work on metrics. And this mandate was reiterated recently by our official body, the Committee of Agriculture. The members country asked FAO to scale up agroecology and other innovative approach, including bioeconomy, and called us to improve data collection. So we have this mandate really reiterated, which is really important for us also because we do that on behalf of the members countries. Just a snapshot, just for information, TAPE is already implemented in 58 countries, 10,000 households already. We have a co-funding so far. If we did that, we are really generously supported by partners. So what next? Just to say that we have many reports and publications done by all the partners. They are not all accessible, I must recognize. So now we are doing our best to have them all available in the Agroecology Knowledge Hub. We will make a publication to make a summary of this phase on the Agroecology Knowledge Hub. So what I'm doing now is just a teaser to say you can go in the Knowledge Hub in a few days and you will have the information. And also we will undertake, not us, by the way, but a meta-analysis of the global data. So it's a teaser, but I will give a few 3 slides on some results we had. So this from 18 countries, more than 5,000 households, the level of agroecology. So you could see the level of agroecology is a moderate, 47%. So we are not at 50%. So you could see the result we could see also in the other country. It's interesting. The highest scoring element is culture and food tradition. And you have really a high variability and not really, I will say, good results. These are the elements. As you know, inside the element, you have indices. So if you go a little more into indices, you can see in green, they are the best one, but they are average because the scale is 4. It's not 2.5. Huh? It's just to visibility. The maximum is 2.3 out of 4. So crop diversification, soil fertility, all these elements are the ones who are a better score. I will say the elements on the right, the ideas on the right are the more the social elements, social and governance who are better than other. And the lower is the diversity of activities. So it's important for resilience, for instance, economical activities, I mean, and not crops, economical activities, and also the water management. And if you want to see now the second step about performance indicators, or the objective indicator, you could see out of these 24, we call it instance, 24 case studies that we selected because they were more robust. We trust more the way the data was related, and we are more element on the context. Because what are missing now, we have many information provided from partners, but we don't have enough context to really see if there is a real correlation between agroecology and the performance. The correlation can come from other contextual factors. So the context is important. So you can see the positive impact on soil health, agrobiodiversity, income perception, and also food security in all. So no relation is yellow is no relation, and positive relation green. So as I say, we have difficulty, but we can explain this a little more. So now I want to go to the second phase of TAPE, the TAPE Plus. Will be funded by the European Commission in the next 2 years under Desira Plus partnership. The graph just here, it's the assessment we made when you did validation workshop about users. Say, how do you evaluate your experience using TAPE? So you could see it's very positive of positive, but it's 46 users that really used it. It was a really positive aspect for us to continue. But as I said, we had many recommendations because they say it's not perfect at all. We are happy, but it's not perfect. So please improve it. So that's what we are doing now. Component one. So we have two components in this new program. So the first component is to improve guidance for users, because still it's not always easy. To have a better, also better contextual factor for us to have more robust data. Refinement of the indicators in step 1 and step 2. Step 2, we'll see we are speaking about biodiversity indicator, for instance. We can see about maybe more robust indicator. And for this, we will also work with other projects existing. We have a metrics project also funded by EU, where they are working on indicators. So we want really to work together, to work on the same metrics. It would be good for everybody. So we have a digital platform, and we have a geospatial information system integration to improve the context-specific insight and policy making. Also training material, we develop a lot of training material. We'll work also with partners, beneficiaries of Desira Plus in almost like maybe 12, 20 countries in Africa, and a community of practices. So that the objective is to make TAPE freely accessible. So we don't need FAO anymore. You have the tool, you have all the explanation, you have all the guidance, all the automatic calculation, and so on. We want to deliver something ready to use. So now the component 2. So that's why we're here. TAPE National. So TAPE National, what do we want to do? So the objective is to assess agroecology at national level as precisely as possible. So we see it's a big challenge. Having a baseline on the level of agroecology and monitor it over time. We want to support a policy dialogue with this evidence-based recommendation. It's not assessing for assessing, it's assessing for something. We would like to set a sustainable mechanism to monitor the change over time with government, with partner organization. Also identify key performance indicators that we can see with the country. If some of them are important, we can take them on board. And yeah, the objective with FAO, the objective is to work with the government to suggest actionable reform. So we want to have a partnership with government. We will work in 4 countries in Africa. They are not selected yet. We have a quite clear idea, but we have criteria, but it's not decided yet. So yeah, just wanted to say, yes, what is important, the strength of TAPE is to collect primary data at the farm level. And as you could say, we work a lot with farmer organization, NGO, it's a really participatory tool. It's not perfect, it's not a high scientific tool, it's a participatory tool that is lively. So I think that's a real strength we have. So we want to have primary data, will be complemented with secondary data for existing database, but not only this. Also, what we want to do is to integrate TAPE into national data collection frameworks. So we want to really work with the government, with research academy, to say, okay, what kind of data collection are you doing? Let's do it together, and now also in the future. So it's a really long-term work. So yes, so we spoke about remote sensing. I already spoke about that, and also synergy. So synergy with other local initiatives. For us, is super important. We could see it's not only technical, the problem. It's not only data, it's human. If you want to have research academia to share the data with you, you need to spend time together. It's a human thing also. So we really want to make synergy to say, okay, we are not taking, we are not extracting, we are doing it together. So this is an important part, but also synergy with other tools, because I think you are aware, many tools are existing, everybody has this framework. So what we want to do is say, okay, let's try to combine. Let's try to make components all together. No hegemonity. Like, let's work together. That's a mindset we have. And also there are really nice tools existing, especially on policy level, policy recommendation that we want to combine with. So yes, so the asset we have also that now we work more. So far, TAPE was more a technical tool inside FAO. Now it's not only technical inside technical division. We work a lot with a statistical division of FAO who's doing the SDGs, agricultural census, all the official data with government goes through this division. So now we are working with them and we want to have TAPE inside this kind of mechanism, official mechanism. It will help us to do this job at national level, to have like an official mandate, I would say. So we have collaboration with a research center, joint research centers or European Commission, Statford, Agroscope, CIRA, INRAE, the Transformative Partnership Platform works on metrics and Agroecological coalition. We build on experience, you could see the assessment. We already have an experience of a census in Polynesia, where some of TAPE questions were put in the census. So 4,000 farms were surveyed with the 10 elements. So this was really, this is the best way to be really in the DNA of the country. So adapt methodology, yeah, we want to have 4 countries, but 4 different countries, because we want to have recommend different way of doing. As we could see, it's difficult to have a small granularity. So we can have small country where we have a lot of farm survey, and big country where it will be difficult to be representative. So the sample strategy will be tough, stratification will be tough. So we want to have 4 different countries with like a more civil society organization supporting, and not to have 4 to be able to reproduce it after in all the country, I don't know, but most of the country. So the local partnership are important, of course. So this is heavy, but just to say, okay, in 2 years, we have a lot of things to do, but we are quite ready. So the country selection, pre-implementation assessment, there is a lot to do on policy level, because we're speaking also about policy level, not only about data level. The design with indicator mapping, questionnaire, data agreement. We see data agreement is a big thing. I think maybe we say everything in 1 year. I know we are ambitious. Pilot testing, so first pilot testing, of course, with evaluation. And after once that pilot testing is done, we go to the full-scale implementation, so next year. In parallel, we pilot test advanced methodology, machine learning, remote sensing. Of course, the data analyst work. Policy workshops with important policy dialogue. And we want to set up something sustainable also, just not one assessment with the government, with partner organization to see how we can have this over time. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.